The thought police from George Orwell's 1984 novel, also known as Think Pol. Learn about their role in the plot, what they represent, and quotes from characters. Thought crime is the act of committing a crime against the government in your thoughts. This can be as simple as thinking to oneself that the government could do a better job fixing the roads, or that one wishes they were paid more. The thought police are in charge of monitoring the thoughts of citizens. The thought police symbolize the overpowering and overarching control that the government has over the citizens of Oceania. They had the capability of arresting people based on supposed and suspected thoughts they may or may not have ever expressed. Yes, Winston and Julia are ultimately captured by the thought police. Winston was lied to when he was told there would be no monitoring in the room he rented. Mr. Charrington, whom he rented the room from, turned out to be a member of the thought police. Winston is ultimately captured by the thought police, and his execution is planned. He is betrayed by his friends Julia and O'Brien. The reader learns that Mr. Charrington turns out to be a member of the thought police. Winston feels that no matter what he says, writes, or does, the thought police will capture him anyway. Because of this, he often takes unnecessary risks throughout the novel. He fears they can actually read his thoughts even if he never expresses them. Mr. Charrington, from whom Winston rents an upstairs room in his building, is the one who reports Winston to the thought police. The reader does not realize until later on that Mr. Charrington is a member of the thought police, and now can see all interactions between him and Winston in a different light. In George Orwell's novel 1984, there are a group of people referred to as the thought police. They are members of the government whose main role is to maintain law and order, but they have one particular difference from most law enforcers who are in charge of policing everything from theft to traffic laws to murder. This group is in charge of policing thoughts, identifying who has impure or anti-government thoughts, and doling out punishments to those who are deemed in violation of the thought police's guidelines. Headquartered at the Ministry of Love, sometimes referred to as Mini-Love, the thought police serve as a terrifying force to ordinary citizens within the novel. The main character, Winston, suffers from almost constant anxiety and fear that the thought police will know what's going on inside his head, especially as he starts to think more freely and question the decisions the government makes. The thought police cannot be identified, so Winston and others are wary of not only strangers and acquaintances, but also close friends and family. Anyone could be a member of the thought police, and one misspoken word, one slip-up in facial expressions, or one misread gesture could mean the difference between life and death. The punishments doled out from the thought police could be considered severe, especially in today's society. There are no explicitly written laws in the society in which Winston lives, so the government and thought police do things at their own discretion. The thought police serve as a substitute to traditional law enforcement agencies or police, and most of their punishments involve torture, time in a labor camp, or what is referred to as vaporization, erasing all traces of a person and making it seem as if they never even existed. Many people who succumbed to the thought police in 1984 are never seen or heard from again and are presumed dead. When they are vaporized, any sign that their crime was ever committed in the first place is entirely erased. This is done so no one but the thought police ever sees that a crime was committed, and therefore cannot get any ideas or copy the crime on their own. The thought police are first and foremost against thoughts or ideas, which is why they are considered the main police force within Orwell's imagined world. Create your account. Think about the society you live in for a moment, specifically its laws. What aren't you allowed to do? In our society, there are laws governing everything from murder to theft to traffic patterns, and we take these laws in stride. We're used to them, and it's the way our society works. But what if there were no written laws? What might take their place? George Orwell addresses this idea in his novel 1984. Orwell has created a dystopian or an undesirable or frightening society where there are no written laws, but everyone is kept under strict control by the thought police. In Newspeak, the official language of the society, they are called Think Pol, 21K views. When studying in 1984, thought police quotes are often remembered and analyzed, though there are a variety of quotes from 1984 that prove the severity of the thought police. Just 3 will be provided below. The thought police would get him just the same. He would have committed, even if he'd never set pen to paper, the essential crime that contained all others in itself. Thought crime, they called it. Thought crime was not a thing that could be concealed forever. This is stated when Winston is thinking about writing in his diary. He decides, ultimately, that he might as well. Because no matter what he thinks or what he does, the thought police will eventually discover him and his actions, and he will be punished for it. The thought police know all. To unlock this lesson, you must be a study.com member. Create your account. In the 1949 dystopian novel 1984 by George Orwell, the reader sees a society where thoughts, ideas, and free speech are controlled by the government of Oceania. And the enforcers of this control are called the thought police, or think pol in newspeak. This agency has replaced traditional police and law enforcement because there are no explicit laws in this society. The thought police serve as the sole judge, jury, and executioner to any perceived crime against the party, even if that crime is only negative thinking or attitude. They do not even need evidence to condemn someone they believe is guilty. Citizens are terrified of the thought police and terrified that any wrong action or gesture could cause them to be vaporized. The individuals who work for this agency are unidentifiable because citizens avoid the building where their headquarters are located, the Ministry of Love, after punishment which consists of torture, time in a labor camp, and death. Their crimes are erased so no one can get IDs from them. The main focus of the thought police is to ensure that a revolution is never conceived of or followed through on. Create your account. While there are technically no laws in 1984, there are many things that you can be arrested or punished for. Mostly these are things that go against the doctrines or beliefs and rules of the governing party. The worst of these is known as thought crime, and it's pretty much what it sounds like, a crime of thought. This is when you think things that go against the party. Winston, the main character, tells us about thought crime when he is writing in his diary an act which is definitely criminal. He says, whether he went on with the diary or whether he did not go on with it made no difference. The thought police would get him just the same. He had committed, would still have committed, even if he had never set pen to paper, the essential crime that contained all others in itself. Thought crime, they called it. A crime of thought, of course, can't be proven even in Orwell's society, but think pol don't need any actual evidence. Even a facial expression would serve as proof. It was terribly dangerous to let your thoughts wander when you were in any public place or within range of a telescreen. The smallest thing could give you away. A nervous tic, an unconscious look of anxiety, a habit of muttering to yourself, anything that carried with it the suggestion of abnormality, of having something to hide. In 1984, think pol basically have ultimate arresting and punishing power, and evidence isn't something they care about. Form and function. Think pol isn't really an official organization as we might think of one. It has no hierarchy, no structure, no official membership, and certainly no uniforms like our police wear. There's no way to determine by sight who might be a member. This is very purposeful. If you never know who might be a member of think pol, you have to carefully watch what you say and do and think at all times. There isn't a way to be sure you're safe, and so you'll never actually form any concrete ideas that go against the party. This stops revolution before the idea is even conceived. In addition, even a non-member can be a threat. Anyone who wants can turn you in to the thought police with little or no evidence of anything. Winston comments, quite likely the person at the next table was a spy of the thought police, and quite likely he would be in the cellars of the Ministry of Love within 3 days. Later, Parsons, a man Winston works with, is turned in by his 7-year-old daughter. This shows that literally no one can be trusted, which serves as a source of constant fear. Police and Punisher. The thought police are a replacement for traditional police or other law enforcement agencies. In addition to serving as the arresting force, they are also the ones who dole out punishment for any crime committed. This occurs in their headquarters, the Ministry of Love. This mostly involves torture and possibly death or time spent in a labor camp. When starting his diary, Winston comments, "This was not illegal. Nothing was illegal since there were no longer any laws. But if detected, it was reasonably certain that it would be punished by death or at least by 25 years in a forced labor camp. To unlock this lesson, you must be a study.com member." Create your account